even if you aren't a firearms owner, are you just going to sit there and watch while your fellow Canadians are scapegoated for crimes they didn't commit? Are you just going to sit there and watch and do nothing while a group of people are targeted by the government, even though they didn't do anything wrong? Because yes, it will be you next. Like they're banning some of these firearms simply because they look cool.
To Quebec first because the government of Quebec has signed a deal to help the federal government take firearms from their own people. Instead of from criminals, they're going to take the guns of law-abiding Quebecers. Quebecers do not deserve this. They deserve better from their government.
So joining me now is my friend and colleague, Alexa Lavoie, and she's here to talk about a massive pro-firearms rights rally that took place in Quebec, of all places. As a Westerner, sometimes I think that all of our problems related to firearms rights comes from lobbyists in Quebec, but there is a huge pro-firearms community in Quebec, and they are, just like the rest of us, tired of being scapegoated by the federal government for the federal government's inability to deal with the crime in this country. And Alexa Lavoie was there to document it all. Alexa, thanks for joining me on the show today. Tell me about the protest, who organized it, how many people were there?
It was organized by CCFR, mainly the part from Quebec, and with the help of the rest of the CCFR team. A lot of people were there, I think thousands of them, maybe 2,000-3,000. I don't have the exact numbers, but I know that there were some bus organized to all drive to Quebec City. And I was actually surprised to see the number of people there. And I saw families, I saw women, because most of the time people are seeing as this kind of movement mainly with men. But no, I was kind of surprised. It was really a mix. Young woman that liked to go with their father and go to just doing some shooting sports. It was actually like a really beautiful day. I even saw a goat.
Did a protest goat. You know, just to put a pin on what you said about young women being at these rallies, the single largest demographic, the fastest growing demographic of firearms owners in this country is young women. Young women are getting more and more interested in the shooting sports. And, you know, if you are a young woman in Alberta and you have a criminal break into your house, you don't have to presume the benevolence of that criminal inside of your house. You can use your firearm to defend yourself and not be prosecuted, but that's an Alberta-centric thing. But I understand why more young women would be getting into the shooting sports, given that crime seems to be out of control in this country.
Yes, and this is, I think there is also the side of we are demonizing and diabolizing firearm owners, and more when you're doing this, you are creating a little bit that the Streisand effect. That more you're doing this, more people will actually go to the other side and try to say, "Hey, why are they doing this? Why not trying?" And you know, I'm pretty sure that a lot of them fall in love with this sport. And, you know, I think it's, I love it. I've been there like a couple of times to do like some sport shooting, and I actually enjoyed it. And, you know, I think it's just because when you try to hide something, you are creating the opposite effect.
Oh, for sure. That's my advice to most people is if you've got a liberal, open-minded friend, take them to the gun range. Because it's fun. It's really fun. It will change their attitude on firearms rights. And, you know, you hear from the federal government all the time that, you know, we have to keep women safe, so we have to get guns off the street. Well, firearms are the great equalizer for a smaller woman versus a larger male criminal. But also, if you look at the CCFR itself,
Mhm.
It's a women-led organization. No offense, Rod Giltaca, we love you, but Tracy Wilson is with the CCFR. We know her, we love her. She's one of the strongest fighters for firearms rights in this country, and even in Quebec. Their director is Sophie Belland. She's the
Mhm.
Quebec director of the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights, and so this is really a a, a a movement that features women prominently, and it sort of cuts through that garbage on the other side that says, we've got to take the guns away from everybody to keep women safe, and the women are saying, yeah, don't do that to us. We
But
like
the
our
ma-
guns.
but the main problem in all this situation is because of the mainstream media.
For sure.
Why I'm saying that, I don't know. I think it was the Toronto Star who literally
Yes.
say our weapon are not for sale when it was actually our guns are not for sale. By modifying their slogans to bring weapon instead of guns. And also, just before the gathering, there were some journalists questioning the mayor of Quebec, trying to portray all the people as dangerous individuals, and kind of questioning the mayor, saying like, "You're not scared, you're not concerned that they are going to be protesting or gathering in front of the National Assembly." Why are you trying to portray them as dangerous individual when they are just going to peacefully gathered to ask the government to remove themselves from the buyback program and to not cooperate with Ottawa? I don't know if you saw also,
Yeah.
but our public safety minister Yann Lafrenière did publish a couple of days before the gathering that it was just for facilitating the buyback program. The people wanted to actually subscribe to it, but they say that they will not allow Ottawa to have access to the registry and that no one will come to confiscate their guns. But the thing is, some people actually say on the ground that probably is a mistake on his side because it's a federal jurisdiction. So if they decide to send the RCMP to grab the guns, the province have nothing to say.
Right. Well, I mean, Alberta has something to say about it. Saskatchewan has something to say about it. Yukon has something to say about it. But we really haven't heard all that much from Quebec. So, Sophie Belland says that she's been in contact with the Quebec Public Safety Minister, and she feels that he is listening to her, and that's a really big step. But Quebec is the only province that has agreed to participate in the buyback wholeheartedly.
Mhm.
Other provinces, like my own, have said, the hell, we're participating in this. Our police have better things to do than go after people who are vetted every single day. And if firearms owners in this country were a problem, you'd already know about us. There's 2.2 million of us. But Quebec has agreed that they will go along with this. So even if Quebec doesn't turn over its own provincial registry information, the federal government does hold information on who has uh, restricted firearms that have moved to prohibited, like the AR. And they also just generally have a list of who has a PAL and or RPAL. So they could go door to door if they wanted to. And Quebec said, yeah, okay, that's fine with us.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's so funny because usually Quebec would be the last province to follow what Ottawa is saying, but for this one, Quebec was the only one saying yes, why not? They literally took the money and sold the firearm owners, the people who
Yeah.
actually are complying to the law, who are the most, responsible
Yeah.
citizen, and they know they can't do any mistakes. They know that they need to be really, really responsible. And we are going full speed and we are punishing them.
Yeah. And I saw some criticism of the rally from the likes of Polly Sisouviant, which is Natalie Provo, who's a Liberal MP. That's her old organization. And, when they elicited Natalie Provo to run for the Liberals, I knew that they would be rushing headfirst into the gun grab and not backing off from it. But they were critical of the rally going forward, even though the rally was planned well in advance because of the Tumblr Ridge shooting. I'll just read you the statement from Police Souviant. They said, "It's shameful that in the wake of this tragedy, pro-gun groups are choosing this moment to continue their campaign to prevent the removal of assault weapons." There's a 410 on the list, that are commonly used in mass shootings and have been banned for public safety reasons. Oh, they're banned, but we still have them. So it's not a public safety issue. You prohibited them from us, but we still have them in our possession, and we're not killing people with them. To her credit, though, Sophie Boland said, "We stand in solidarity with British Columbia. We are all affected, and that is precisely why we're here. Because what happened in British Columbia should never happen again. It's a failure on the parts of government and legislation. It's a mental health issue, not a problem with legal weapons." And we've talked about this before. Why did those firearms stay in the house of the Tumblr Ridge shooter? Where the Tumblr Ridge shooter, who was not the owner of those firearms, had access to them after dozens of points of contact between that family and the RCMP, including an arson on the family household, while the Tumblr Ridge shooter was under the influence of psychedelic mushrooms. Like, why those guns were ever in that household is beyond me. And hopefully one day we have a national inquiry into the several layers of failure that took place there. But it absolutely has nothing to do with people like me who have their firearms properly secured. And if firearms rights are going to be infringed because the police and doctors and the school and perhaps ChatGPT failed to do their job in Tumblr Ridge, now is the time to stand up and say, it wasn't us. We're not the problem.
And this is something that's people were actually bringing to me on the ground. It's like all the regulation and legislation. At one point, they were able to see that there were a lack of enforcement of the regulation and legislation that are already in place. So you're lacking proper check of what you already put in place. But instead of saying we will enforce it and we will make sure that the legislation and the regulation that are already in place are actually applied properly, oh no, we are just going to go further and just remove the guns from the legal guns owner. So this is actually one of the big problem. It's like instead of doing things properly, they are just saying, but we don't have actually enough resources. We're just going further and just remove the gun so it would be easier and we don't need to put more resources to enforce regulation and legislation.
Right. Quebec is participating in the firearms buyback to the tune of $12.4 million. That money could go a hell of a long way in staffing up police services or cracking down on crime, hiring more Crown prosecutors to make sure that people are shoved through the legal system in a timely way instead of having their cases time out and then having them walk free. I think that would go, or maybe let's secure the border. Why don't we try to do something like that? Because that's where all the illegal firearms are ending up in the hands of gangs.
But I'm sorry, but this is
Right.
Akwesasne, and Akwesasne, there is a really few desire from our law enforcement and our government to crack down on a native land. But the thing is, we know where is the problem. But because we don't want to go over there, by what fear, we prefer to go against and chase the people who comply to the law.
Right, because they know we'll follow the law. We're the path of least resistance. And that's what lazy lawmakers do. They take the easy way instead of doing the thing that they need to do to keep communities safe. $12.4 million could make a dent in some of the violent crime happening in Quebec. But the Quebec government has said that it is better spent harassing nice people who just want to target shoot or hunt with their families and subsistence hunt because the groceries are so expensive thanks to Mark Carney's spending habits. Tell me, what is some of the feedback you were getting from the people on the ground that you talked to?
A lot of them were saying like, we are not criminals. We actually comply to the law. We are so responsible. So now on October 30, we are going to be deemed criminal because we don't want to give our guns that we actually did all the steps to be able to own a firearm. A lot of them, they say like, we don't understand. They don't address the issue. They are taking the least resistance path.
Yeah.
A lot of them were saying like there is a rise on mental illness. Don't understand with the rise of mental illnesses in Canada and the fact that there is a problem with illegal gun smuggling at the border. Why in this whole world, why it's the 1% that they are going against and not the 99% of the problem? And so a lot of people don't understand. They say that people should stand up because it's not because you're not interested into firearm that you should not be actually concerned that maybe what would be next, what they will actually ban after, what they will actually coerce you to give up. Like, what is it, your car? Because your car is polluting? Is it your boat? What is next? So a lot of people were saying like people should rise at this moment. People should be aware that this is like a violation of the rights that people have and that they are not the problem. They are not the problem of this situation in Canada with the crimes.
Right. We're not the problem. We've never been the problem. And if we were the problem, you'd all know about it by now because there's too many of us. But you are right. Even if you aren't a firearms owner, are you just going to sit there and watch while your fellow Canadians are scapegoated for crimes they didn't commit? Are you just going to sit there and watch and do nothing while a group of people are targeted by the government, even though they didn't do anything wrong? Because yes, it will be you next. Like they're banning some of these firearms simply because they look cool. Yeah, people should care, even if they aren't firearms owners, because you should care if a group of your fellow Canadian citizens are being scapegoated for crimes that they didn't commit, or that their property is being confiscated for no reason whatsoever. They're not criminals. And if you don't care about that, then I can't help you, because it could be you next for something that you didn't do. One of those firearms on the order in council is a 410 bird gun, like a tiny bird gun. You would not use this for duck hunting. And it's only on there because it looks cool. So to put this into context for other people, maybe you have a black car and it looks really cool and it looks fast, but it might not be fast. And then the government comes along and bans it because you might one day drive it fast, even though it doesn't have the capacity to drive fast. That's what's happening to firearms owners right now. And they're losing family heirlooms that way. They're losing parts of their family history. So even if you don't care about firearms, maybe you care about property rights, but maybe you care about fairness and fair treatment at the hands of the government under the law. And right now, that's not happening to the firearms community.